Onions, Chapter 9, The Trumpet. 40 minutes later, C.W. sped back up the dirt road into Sandrin's front yard. He dropped the bike on the ground, hurried into the bungalow, and deposited the copies on the kitchen table as Bosco bounded into him. "You want to rustle, boy, huh? Huh? Come on, let's see what you got." C.W. ran out the kitchen door and plopped on the grass. Bosco was all over him. He was barking joyously and jumping around, dropping on his tummy and turning over on his back as C.W. laughed and wrestled with his pal. Sandrin came to the kitchen door and watched for a moment before returning to her study. In a few minutes, C.W. re-entered the kitchen and washed his hands. He was about to go back outside to work in the yard when he hesitated. Crossing the floor to the kitchen table, he took the book out of Sandrin's hands and began prompting her in French. Later, C.W. was washing the dishes. He was wearing an apron that had the words, "Best Chef in the West," written across the chest. He finished up, removed the apron, and was about to leave when he saw Sandrin's trumpet standing upright in the corner next to the music stand. Curious, he walked over, picked up the instrument, and examined it. On the trumpet's bell was engraved the name S.G. Fuller. He was about to replace the trumpet on its stand. He changed his mind. Raising the instrument to his lips, he blew into the mouthpiece. No sound came out. He tried again. The same result. Sandrin had been watching from the kitchen table. C.W. caught her eye. "How do you get a sound, Mrs. Fuller?" "Pinch your lips together and blow, like this." Sandrin puckered her lips and made a buzzing sound. C.W. tried and got a blast. "Now, do that into the mouthpiece." He did so and got a loud blat. "Hey, I got a sound." "Now blow into the mouthpiece and push the first valve down." C.W. did so and played 2 loud notes. "Now, push the other 2 valves down at the same time." He did so and got several different notes. Amazed, he took his lips off the mouthpiece. "I can play the trumpet! I can play the trumpet!" He kept blowing into the mouthpiece and pushing different valves down, making a loud hodgepodge of sounds. Bosco was watching from outside the kitchen door and not sure what to make of the fledgling musician. "Play a note without pushing any valves." C.W. did so. "Now, push the first and third valves down." C.W. obeyed and played a sound 1 note higher than the previous note. "Now, push down the first and second valves." C.W. did so and got another sound 1 note higher. Sandrin kept giving him instructions until he played 8 notes in immediate succession. "Congratulations, Mr. Onions. You've just played an octave." C.W. stared back. What's an octave?" "It's a sequence of 8 notes. If you continue playing the same notes up the scale, it's a higher octave." "Okay." He thought a moment. "How many octaves are there?" "Well, that depends. If you're a beginner, maybe you can play 2. If you're Maynard Ferguson or Eric Mirashiro, you can probably play 6. That's very, very high." "Who are those 2 guys?" "2 of the best jazz musicians in the world." "How many octaves can you play?" Sandrin took a moment and looked down at her French book. "Probably 4. I never specialized in high notes. I did tricks playing the trumpet on a balancing pole, high up." "Like standing on your head?" Sandrin smiled. "Yes, like standing on my head." C.W. was deep in thought. Can you teach me to play the trumpet? Sandrin paused. It's a hard instrument to learn. Very few master it. I can teach you the basics. How far you go depends on you. How much you love it, how much you practice, how dedicated you are. Can I learn to be as good as you? Sandrin smiled. My dear boy, I started playing the horn when I was 2. I practiced up to 8 hours a day. You'd have a lot of catching up to do. C.W. nodded. Well, I guess we better get started. Sandrin laughed, closed her French book, and got up. It was nearing 5 o'clock when C.W. got his first introduction to the trumpet. He was still at Sandrin's house at 9 p.m. Sandrin had called Mrs. Williams and asked if it was okay for her foster child to stay for dinner. Mrs. Williams had agreed. The retired circus performer and the aspiring young beginner had talked about trumpet playing for hours. C.W. had played until his lips were numb. He learned a lot in that first lesson. The importance of breathing, the coordination of the flow of air with fingering, how to breathe for the diaphragm to increase lung capacity, how to read a simple musical line. They listened to jazz recordings of many top trumpeters, Miles Davis' Autumn Leaves, Maynard Ferguson at Birdland, Harry James' Flight of the Bumblebee, and many more. When Ferguson hit one of his extreme high notes, C.W.'s eyes widened. Wow, he said. That's what I want to do. They'd been so absorbed in Sandrin's great passion, music, that they'd forgotten to eat dinner. She hastily cooked some hot dogs, opened a can of baked beans, added some potato chips, and 2 glasses of lemonade. They ate outside by the waterfall. Sandrin had installed some overhead lights on the kitchen porch, which gave enough light for the 2 to eat and continue their discussion of trumpet playing. Before they knew it, it was 10 o'clock. You should have been home hours ago. Let's go. Oh, let me give you a beginner's trumpet solo book. Bring it back each Saturday, and I'll teach you how to play them one at a time. Sandrin went inside the kitchen and emerged a few minutes later with a slender book with dog-eared yellow pages. It's pretty old. Been in my family for 60 years. C.W. looked at the book. I'll take real good care of it, I promise. He tucked it under his arm. Sandrin left the plates on the rocks circling the shallow pool. They climbed in the hotshot, drove down the dirt road, and pulled onto Highway 60. Bosco and Roscoe were grateful for the scraps on the plates, which were gone before the teacher and her pupil got to the garage. C.W. realized he'd forgotten all about his rotten life, his new foster home, his terrible school experience, and his dread of having to fight rock. He was soaring like he'd never soared before. He put his fingers to his mouth. My lips are tingling, he said as he sat beside Mrs. Fuller. Sandrin laughed. You've been playing for hours. How long did it take you to learn? Not long. I had a talent for it. C.W. looked at her. You think I have a talent for it? I can't tell yet. You certainly have the interest. C.W. yawned and looked out the window, the moonlight shining just above the mountains to his right. Don't you ever get tired? Nope, Sandrin said, pausing, deep in thought. Know why people die? Because they give up. I'll never give up, Mr. Onions. Never. I give myself projects, like learning languages, reading the classics, battling City Hall. And I've got a project coming up that you're going to love. When she glanced at C.W., he was fast asleep. It was a little past 11 when the hotshot pulled into Mrs. Williams' driveway. The light was on over the porch where C.W.'s foster mother was standing, waiting for her new boarder. Sandrin shook C.W. awake. He ran into the house and turned and waved goodbye as the 1951 Crosley moved off down the street.